IOD Upcycled Napkin Cuffs. Let's get started.
So you start off with a standard tomato paste can. And what you're going to do is you're going to use, and this part's very important, you're going to use a smooth edge can opener. And what that does is it crimps it or does something special so that when you remove the bottom and the top from it, it gives you a nice smooth edge. And of course you want to check that edge, make sure there's no sharp edges. So then you're going to have a tube. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take that tube, you're going to decide what you want to be your top surface, the surface where you're going to do the work on. You're going to set this down and you're going to slowly and gently press, being careful not to do it too much, and you're going to get it to where you're achieving an oval. A little more than that, I think. There we go. So it's going to be an oval instead of a perfect circle. Okay, so now you can, it's not going to roll around, you're going to have a nice surface to create your artwork on. For this one, I am going to use one of our birdsong cavities, and I'm going to cast, I think this one. Either one of these would work. In fact, you could even use any of these three. You could probably even get by with the larger one wrapped around it if you wanted to. I'm going to go with this one and see how I like that. Always keep your IOD air dry clay sealed when it's not in use. Take off a chunk, and our preferred method is to use a little bit of cornstarch as a release. It's not absolutely necessary, but what we find is the easier you release from your casting from the cavity, the less distortion you're going to have. So if it just falls out with no coaxing at all, you're not going to have any stretching or distortion. So let's take this and get it in there. I have way more than I needed, and that's okay. Oops. We're going to use our thumbs and get the excess off. You start seeing that micro rim edge there. And I'm actually removing a little more than is necessary because I want to, for this project, I don't want it to be two-dimensional. So having it kind of, I'm gonna use my thumb to kind of get some of the excess out. So it's actually, usually you want flush. This, I'm actually going a little concave. That way my casting will be a little lower on its profile. Okay, remember, put your extra right back in here and then get it tucked back into your bag. Then we're going to take this, and in order to show you, let's see, if you place it down on the surface and then do this and allow gravity to release it so that you're not manipulating it, that is your best way to get a clean casting. And because of the micro rim, you don't have little edge bits that you need to deal with. I've set the castings aside, and I want to, using a medium or coarse sanding block, I want to hit the inside of that, the inside of the ridge, and any areas to make sure that there's no sharp edges. Gently feel that, and then I want to use it to create a little bit of tooth on this surface so that the casting and the glue will have a nice bond. let's see how we want to arrange this. We could do just like that. Ooh, that looks really nice. Let's see. It's gonna be beautiful. Or I'm thinking I kind of like something like that, because I like how the bird is facing upward in flight. I like that. Now, typically we have these little makeup spatulas we love to use, but I don't mind confessing that right now we are not working at the shop because of COVID. We're working remotely, so many of my tools are still at the shop. So I'm going to get this on there, and I'm just going to use my finger to get that spread gently, not getting the details smushed, not smushing the details. Okay. You can see how thick the glue is, and it's a little easier to manage when you do have that spatula or a popsicle stick or some such. I like the little plastic spatulas because the dried glue just pops right off when it's, you know, if you didn't wash it off, and so they're reusable. So here we go. Let's go ahead and place this down. Make sure that this is laying the way you are going to want it, so that your placement, oh, isn't that pretty? I think that's so, oh, love it. Gently make sure that you have good contact on the whole thing, so that you're going in and you're getting your edges gently pressed down without obliterating your detail. Which isn't too difficult to do, especially if you allow your casting to sit out for a few minutes and kind of firm up a little bit. Okay, nice. We're going to really tend your edges. Make sure it's all down. Oh, how adorable is that? Okay, let's set that aside and do. Again, when we're working with all of our supplies, what we typically do is we take some of the quick and thick and we put it in a little cup, and then we use our spatula to scoop it and spread it. Gentle. Some of these have little delicate details that you need to be, oops, mindful of. Okay, let's go ahead and arrange this little keyhole. Make sure that this is the way we want it, and center it on that surface. Good, I think so. I love it. You're being simultaneously firm but gentle as you press it slowly in place, and then go around and check your edges. Get them tucked down nicely into a consistent bed of your glue. If you have it squish out, it's okay. In fact, it's actually a little bit better if you're gonna err on the side of some squishing out, because what you don't want, you want it in a nice, all the contact is made. You really have it firmly glued on there. Oh, that is so pretty. Okay, so we are going to set these aside to dry, probably with a little fan on them for a few minutes, so that they get a little bit of a crust on the surface, which is going to protect the detail, because we are going to actually paint these while they are still wet. We are using a soft creamy white and a brush that is gentle and soft. You don't want a really firm brush, because you are going to be mindful of the detail on your casting, which is not dried or cured yet, and get right in there. Now, if you want to wait, there's absolutely no problem with that. We just tend to want to be able to plan for group activities and classes so that you can move to the next step. So we've adapted to that by kind of flash surface drying and then painting gently to get the coverage. But also not smashing the detail. You want to keep that detail. If you find that your chalk type paint is kind of not covering it, sometimes it just takes a couple coats to get it on there where it wants to move around a little bit. That's why giving that little bit of sanding gives it a little tooth. And as it sets up, it'll grip a little better. Just work with it a little bit. There we go. Now, after this dries, you're going to have some little gaps that you're going to go back in and touch up with your paint color, because you get a little bit of moisture you get the moisture as it dries, it shrinks a little bit, so you get gaps, and that's something that is inherent with air dry clay. And you usually embrace it, and if it's not your favorite, then you use a different medium. There's all kinds of mediums you can use. Okay, we're gonna let that dry and come back for another coat in a little bit. And what's cool about these is you can just set it, because you've got that glue is so thick, you can set it vertical while it dries. No big deal. Remember, you'll get little gaps after it's all dried, and you can go in and touch those up. Or, if you're more patient than I am, you can just wait and paint it all at once. It'll take care of those gaps the first time. There's a little bit of residual glue on the back of this can that I could not wash off, so it's kind of chunky back there. paint, there is another advantage or upside to painting it while it is still wet, and that is actually that both gluing it down and painting while it's still wet actually evens out the drying time. So it might take a little longer overall to dry, but it's doing it more evenly, which means you aren't going to have as much movement on your casting. It kind of mitigates that a little bit, which is nice. So there's pros and cons to the different ways to do it. You want to make sure that you don't you want to have nice full even coverage on your casting, but you don't want the paint to be so thick that it fills the depressions and causes you to lose your dimension and detail.
Now you're going to dry overnight and then seal with a matte sealer of choice. We hope you've enjoyed making these napkin cups with us. Love, Josie and Sally, IOD.